Yo, what's up guys? The last few videos in Up Your Artifact game. This is gonna be a more practical one, going over units by element, talking about which artifacts would I put on which unit for RTA. It does also kind of translate towards Siege, but Siege is a little bit more different. I'm gonna use the same intro for all of the elements. So the thing I want to talk about, a few things. If I mention it, I might have already talked about it in another video. I'm not completely gonna repeat it. So maybe you have some questions afterwards, like, oh, why would you use this or that, or how does it work? Check the other videos. They're down in the description as well. Also, if I just call out or anything high efficient, which I might do pretty often, that means that multiple lines are useful for that unit with high efficiency. So just having, like, for example, super high crit damage skill 3 on the unit might not be the best, because you can also have some damage from good, damage from bad, or like crit damage from good, crit damage from bad, single target crit damage, those kind of things. So keep that in mind. Either how, this one is fire. Let's dive into the video. Also, if I go over any unit, or if I miss any of the units and you're like, oh, how about Rakan? I'm like, yeah, sorry, no one uses Rakan in RTA, and if you do, you should stop doing that. So I'm just going over the units that are actually used in RTA, and if your unit is missing, then you probably should stop using the unit because it's not that great. Sure, in lower ranks, it can totally work. Everything can work at the lower ranks, but I'm talking like endgame stuff. So talking about Wind, again, if I don't talk about a certain unit, it's probably because they're not used that much in RTA. So Momo is probably not that, I never seen her, but additional damage from attack, I guess. Cigar is used here and there. It's not that great of a unit, but it's again one of those units has 3 skills of Eki checks, so I wouldn't really fix Eki in artifacts. You could do for S3 maybe because it's more important than the S2, S2, S1. But I would go additional damage lines from speed and HP. Changpong is an interesting one. It's maybe difficult to get him on high accuracy, so you kind of want to have accuracy maxed within the build itself already. But if you don't, I would go for accuracy S3 more than accuracy S2, because his S3 is a consistent skill. It has 100% activation rate. His S2 is only 75%. And therefore, he's not a main stripper, but he's a main pushbacker, a main CC'er, and that kind of stuff. So don't use Changpong as main stripper. And then you can actually go for this Eki S3. If you already have Eki fixed, you go additional damage by attack, additional damage by speed. Savannah is an interesting one as well, because it's difficult to build a Savannah on high speed, high crit rate, high crit damage. Well, crit damage is not a must, but high crit rate. And then also have a lot of Eki. So I would go Eki S3 on this one for sure. Then if you have a good crit rate build, you can add like crit rate S2, S1. And on the left side, you could go single target crit rate, but you can also just go like make Savannah your main water unit killer or your main wind unit killer probably. So therefore additional damage on wind or on water. Odin is actually, it's not used much or pretty much at all, but crit damage S1, everything to add more crit damage. Terranese is not used as much anymore, but I would probably put Eki S1, Eki S3, crit damage S2, and then on the left side anything to make it more tanky against whatever element. Diana is an interesting one. I've seen a lot of people put additional damage from HP, which does make sense with this kind of base HP, but it's actually not that base HP, because, well, too bad they don't switch this. Would be nice if they actually showed, because in the human form, she actually has half of her HP, and that HP is transferred to attack. So let's say you have additional damage from HP, that will be halved, because in human form you have half of your HP. But therefore your attack is increased, and therefore attack increasing or additional damage by attack will help you the most. You could also go crit damage S2, but crit damage S2 works better if you're guaranteed, or like if you have an armor break on your enemy, crit damage S2 is better. If you don't, which most cases I guess, depending on your setup, then having additional damage by attack is better. You could also go for your Eki S1, Eki S2, if you have some like sidelines of that, it's not bad. Feng Yang, additional damage from defense, from HP probably. It's not used as much, but he is not a bad unit actually. I've seen some people do recovery S2, that does not work on him because his recovery S2 is the buff. It's not an instant recovery, and therefore recovery S2 does not work. But that, and then Eki S1 is also decently beneficial. Ganymede isn't interesting as well. I would definitely go Aki S3 as much as possible. And then you could go, if you have some crit rate on your Aki, like, or if you have some crit rate on your Gany, like at least 70, you could go like crit damage is 3, crit damage is 1. But probably not, and therefore I would just add additional damage by speed, by HP, which will help like quite with some chip damage for his S1. Hathor is one of those units there's not too many artifacts that are good on her, so you could actually go for artifact lines of accuracy, but try to find like a middle ground where your S3 and S2 have like the same amount of stats. So you go like a 14 and 14, and then you go 71 Aki to max that out on your Hathor. And then on the left side, probably again speed by low HP or something like that, or speed by speed during inability effects if you still have those artifacts. Triton, interesting one, probably Aki S2, S3, and then same as Hathor, try to max it that both are like on equal ground, and therefore you push your Triton to max Aki. But besides that, he doesn't have too many good lines. You could, for example, go like additional damage on like water or wind, but that's it. Tiana, it's not used as much anymore, but if you have a Tiana, it's not bad to have like a crit damage Tiana, and therefore additional damage by crit damage. And Aki S1 is pretty good on her, because her S1 actually became more consistent right now, so if you put more Aki on that, that's pretty beneficial too. The left side probably adding more damage. Ethna is a typical one. You definitely want to go pure on the additional damage by speed, by attack, maybe some HP, maybe even some defense. It's just a lot of like additional damage, and that's pretty much all you do on Ethna. Xingzi, he's not really used as much, but I would probably go Aki S1, Aki S2, single target crit damage, additional damage on counters, maybe some additional damage on water, that kind of stuff. Because if you would draft him, you probably draft him into like a water heavy team, so like that's the thing. If you have a unit that's just a pure counter to one element, which is like a Xingzi, for example, then you could go for like, hey, I want to do also more damage on that element. Leo, I would put additional damage on water or wind, and then just pure like crit damage is crit damage is 2, single target crit damage, everything crit damage. You don't need to go for additional damage for low HP, for example, because the moment you're in torrent range, you're gonna one shot anyway, no matter like if you added more attack or not. Charlotte is one of those units. It's probably just a lot of like additional damage lines, speed, HP, maybe even attack. Her attack base stats are pretty high, so you could go Aki S3, S2, but probably you want to focus on just more damage. Sierra, one of the main units still used. Some people go for Aki S2. Aki S2 is not that bad. You could do that. But preferably you want to focus on additional damage from speed, attack, and HP. You don't want to go for you don't want to go for bomb damage. Bomb damage is not that good. Like, it does add some damage, sure, but the odds of you landing a bomb and that bomb actually exploding, well, Sierra, it's pretty decent, but even then, S1 is probably gonna add a lot more damage for it. Jemaya is an interesting one because he doesn't have too much artifacts that can work, so probably just adding extra crit damage. It could be even a unit that you put on like slot 4 crit rate, and they just add like crit damage S1 mainly, I would say. Crit damage S1 if he's fast. Crit damage S2 could be, but 9 out of 10 your S2 actually does less damage on your S1. You could put Eki S2 on him because he actually has a chance to land the attack debuff, so Eki S2 could work. And then on the left side, probably more crit damage if you can find it. Carbine is used quite some to counter like water Ryus and that kind of stuff. I would definitely put anything that just adds more damage on him. Crit damage S1, single target crit damage, attack increasing effects because he actually has a self attack buff, and maybe like additional damage on wind or water or even light or dark, like whatever you probably hit with that thing. Triana, it's not used as much anymore, but it's a candidate that's really good for crit damage S1 because she only has one skill that's crit damage. Recovery S2, of course. Eki S1 is pretty good as well, and then probably reduction for fire, I guess. Or you could do additional damage on wind or water if you only use her against like water teams, for example. Lucian, he's still being used in RTA to somewhat extent, not that much anymore, but anything additional damage, crit damage is 3. Attack increasing effect, maybe not, because you don't always have attack increasing, like an attack buff on him. Additional damage from attack is always good, so it's probably a combination of those. Shimate is used from time to time, and this is one that would be high scaling on additional damage from speed, additional damage from attack, because you actually have multi-hits, but also then the crit damage stats also work. So that's it for Wind. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Also, if you agree or disagree with some of these, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll change some here and there, put some extra notes, anything like that. Doesn't matter. 2 more elements to go, which will be released in the following day. So anyhow, guys, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.